And that's why such beliefs do hold us back, because it's the same function of fear that the mainstream media are doing. It's just it claims to sort of have an alternative narrative, but it's still doing the same thing of promoting fear and not promoting any alternatives. Because one of the things I said to the guy is that, okay, well, in all this like New World Order stuff, what solutions do you propose? And he was saying, well, you know, I mean, the Zeitgeist movement thing sounds good, but there's there's a few things that are wrong with it. And I mean, I should have actually just like held his feet to the fire and said, okay, well, what are they? Such as, because I've realised that most people, especially, well, not most people, but most people who criticise, movements such as the Zeitgeist movement, is that they sort of over-exaggerate the opinion that they have to sort of imply that their gripe with it is something akin to an absolute certainty about some kind of flaw, when in fact it's just a case of the fact that they've got something a little bit wrong about it. They've got a little bit of misinformation and they're operating from that. So all it takes is just a referral to objective information about what the Zeitgeist movement is, and then they can be like, oh, all right, okay, that's what it's about. It's not funded by the New World Order, because, I mean, one of the things I even said to him is that that if the Zeitgeist movement is funded by the New World Order, the people who have all the money, how come I'm doing all of this on a shoestring? I mean, I've driven for 3.5 hours to get here. I'm not being paid for this presentation. I'm not being paid by anyone to do it. It's costing me to do it. So where's my funding? And he didn't have an answer for that, because it's just completely ridiculous. I mean, it's a point that I've made in the past where, because there was this comment, I think it was like a comment someone else made that I mirrored, that if it's the case that we're in cahoots with the New World Order, where's my concubine? But yeah, it's just strange the kind of things that people would throw out, because the pagan community is in some respects it is like any other community where people who believe things that aren't supported by evidence do crop up within. I mean, any population is vulnerable to that, because it is made up of people who, for all intents and purposes, exist within a paradigm that promotes superstitious thinking and discourages scientific thought and objective thought and critical thinking. But what I proved that day, yet again, is that in order for us to make this world a better place, we need to network with and show appreciation for others who share the same values. They are extensional to us on these kinds of areas. I mean, the Zeitgeist movement and paganism, as it were, I'd say the areas of respecting nature, sustainability, compassion, unity. These are things that both myself and any pagan would really agree with. Even though an actual definition of what paganism actually is can be subjective, because it is a religion, but those tenets are still there, and that's the thing. As Peter Joseph said, the split between TZM and TVP was kind of natural, because the Zeitgeist movement doesn't aim to, necessarily be a parrot for anyone else, but rather an organisation that stands for, not an individual, but a train of thought. And a train of thought implies more than one brain. In fact, as many brains as possible. Yeah? As many brains as are willing to contribute. And that's the idea, networking, showing that that we want to, work together. These are the kinds of values that we do need to embody, and the more we actually exercise, those kinds of behaviours of collaboration and respect, and engaging with people and listening to people, that's part of that solution. Just talking to people. I mean, one of the things that I spoke about in my talk is that an activist does have a responsibility, in a sense, because they have information and insights into a viable solution to the world's problems, and to keep that to yourself is really, to me, that's immoral. If you, like, say for example, if you have a cure for cancer and you keep it to yourself, and you in fact destroy the information and never speak of it, and how many lives are you letting go because you didn't want to share it? Ideas need to be shared. They need to spread. There's things that we all really need to realise, and we all need to agree upon, because if we don't agree upon the things that actually provably improve life, and things that actually technically create conditions where we can live well and respect each other and move forward as a species, how can we sort of make that transition if we don't do that, if we don't share ideas, if we don't communicate, if we don't learn, if we don't grow, then, and I'm not saying grow as in economic growth. That kind of growth is actually unsustainable, because it is cancerous in its very, very core ethos, as it were. We need to evolve, as it were. And we can't evolve on our own. We have to collaborate, because it's one thing that Bill Burr kind of referred to in one of his shows. He said that there's all this information out there, and everyone misses a little bit. And that's actually true, because no one human being knows everything. No one human being can. And in fact, considering that the evidence we've found thus far is that we live in an infinite universe, then there is no knowing of anything at any point in time, as far as we can gather right now. But the more we work together, the more we network, the more we can actually do that. So I encourage you guys to, also seek to engage with other organisations, people who would also agree, or even if it's people who just agree with just one tenet that the Zeitgeist movement advocates, some tenet of either, the application of scientific thought, if it's sustainability, if it's environmentalism, if it's a recognition that the monetary system just does not work properly, or does not serve humanity, it does not do its job properly. Any sort of recognition that there are problems, people who stand for that sort of thing, those are the kinds of people who we should communicate with and share ideas with, and also learn from them, because there's certain, the term that can be used to refer to some of these people are cause fighters. People who don't look at the overarching picture, but rather concentrate on one single issue. But one benefit of that is that these people, it's possible that these people can have better, more accurate information, because their efforts are concentrated in those areas. There is there is a possibility of confirmation bias with some of these people. If they personally don't like something, then it, some people do start accumulating biased information about something that they don't like, just to confirm their dislike of it. But as long as they also appreciate critical analysis of evidence, then they're brilliant to talk to, because they're not going to be standing around saying, no, you're wrong, I'm the one who's right. Even though I've never had anyone actually say that verbatim, but it's mostly been paraphrased. But no, those are the kinds of people that will respond really, really well. People who care about whether their beliefs are true or not, or whether their values are productive and sustainable or not. People need to share ideas, but people also need to care about what is true. And and I would say, that's what can help the development of true adaptive intelligence. A true intelligence. Because Peter Joseph is actually the one who clued me into it, because I struggled with it a bit at first. I was just like, how the hell that doesn't make any sense, does it? But the definition of intelligence that he gave is that it's not about what we know, but how vulnerable we are. And I was reading through TZM Defined, and it sort of hit me that the truer definition of intelligence is not so much what information you're holding, but whether you are open to more transformative information that updates and improves that knowledge. Because it doesn't matter. You could be the most. You could think you're the most intelligent person on the planet if you hold, doggedly on some scientific finding of, say, 50 years ago, right? And say this scientific understanding has since been disproved or revised somehow. At the point that it was, before the point that it was disproven, yes, he would have been correct. And yes, the idea of him knowing that and being able to communicate that would be an indicator of intelligence, that he's absorbed a piece of information, he's thought about it, he's verified it as true, and thus he communicates it in his own language, as opposed to just parroting what he read. He could be defined as intelligent in that sense. But if he carries on doing that, even if he differently paraphrases the same thing, regardless of any revision of that evidence, and thus a changing of the scientific understanding, then he wouldn't really be defined as intelligent. He would be defined as ignorant, because he's not allowing his understanding to change along with the new information. Yeah? So the more vulnerable we are to the change of information, the more intelligent we could be defined in that definition. So it's one really interesting thing, because it's something that humbles us. This is one thing that science gives us. It's the humility of knowing that we don't know everything, not thinking that we know everything, and knowing that we can't know everything, but still aiming to know as much as we can, and caring that what we actually know is such because we can verify it as true. We care about what is true. Yeah? This is one of the reasons why such thinking is detrimental to the current paradigm, because imagine. This is one of the reasons why I have a have a disagreement with there's a Ricky Gervais film called The Invention of Lying, and for those of you who don't know what this film is, just to give you a short premise of what the film describes, is essentially a world where deception doesn't exist. Deception isn't even an option, because it's psychologically impossible for a person to be deceptive, and thus the only mode of operation when communicating with either yourself or anyone else is complete honesty, right? And even though people are honest just as easily as they breathe, right? But the world that they live in is identical to the one that we live in. This wouldn't be possible. If honesty, as George Carlin once said, if honesty was put into this system, it would fall apart. It's deceptions and misdirection which keeps people in compliance with the current paradigm. If people knew and cared about what was true, if they knew what was going on, and if they cared about whether their beliefs were actually true, then there probably would be no such thing as superstition. There would definitely not be a banking system. There would not be a governmental system. So, and that's why the current paradigm has to discourage these kinds of behaviours. And this is one thing that I'm glad that a lot of pagans that I spoke to actually do care about truth. In spite of their religious beliefs, there's when a person has a religious belief, that doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of their knowledge set or value set is going to be operating on the same sort of spiritual ideologies or the same ideological thinking, even though it is likely to be so. But yeah, as I said, we're extensional on those sort of things, so there's no reason why I shouldn't have gone there. And one of the things is that I was constantly in what's known as stretch. this is something in the pickup community is known as stretch. Where basically it's sort of like, imagine a circle, and that's basically your comfort zone, right? Outside of that is another ring, and that's called stretch, and that's all the things in there are the things that you can do, and sometimes the things we do that sort of that are slightly uncomfortable for us to do because they're unfamiliar, they're outside of our comfort zone. But the thing is, the more you go into your stretch zone, the more you're actually able to make parts of that stretch zone a comfort zone. So really the idea is to invade that stretch zone to expand your comfort zone. So eventually, all the basically the outer boundary of the stretch zone becomes the outer boundary of your comfort zone, and beyond even that, that's the larger stretch zone, and you got to increase that, grow your comfort zone even more, and this is partly what I was talking about in the talk, that we need to stop caring about what other people think of us and actually just do things that are ambitious, do things that challenge the status quo, do things that you're not very familiar with. When you go in and you don't know what's going to happen, you're learning, yeah. You're not necessarily stagnating, because all the time you spend in your comfort zone, you're stagnating. You're not actually growing and learning and becoming a better, more able person. And this is vital. It is absolutely vital, especially if you're an activist, because as with the example that I gave in my presentation, when I first went out on the megaphone, I was like pacing up and down for like five minutes, just constantly in my own head, like thinking, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? When in fact I should have just said, screw this, I'm going for it, and then just kill it, And when I say kill it, I mean like, do really well. Yeah, sorry, it's stand-up comedy speak. But yeah, I mean, this is a point I made in the presentation. It's just one I want to exemplify here, because this is something that we need to really, embrace more. Is the idea that we need to be confident speakers in what we advocate. More of us need to actually step up to the plate and actually say, yes, I will be one of those who help voice this out. And that's the thing. You don't have to go out on a megaphone. You don't have to, give a PowerPoint presentation. You don't have to host a radio show. You can just be sharing links on Facebook. That's good as well, But doing more than that is also better. But you don't necessarily have to do all that sort of thing. More people do need to do that, but not everyone needs to. I mean, as Ben McLeish said in one of the interviews I did with him, he said there's different levels of people, and I sort of paraphrased that by saying that when you play a game of chess, you don't win if you have, or you probably stand a much lower chance of actually winning if all your pieces are exactly the same kind of piece. You can't really win a game of chess with just pawns. You've got to have the knights, you've got to have the rooks, you've got to have the kings, queens, whatever, right? So, and that's the thing. More people need to get out there. More people who, you don't necessarily have to be 100% with us, even if you agree with just one thing that the Zeitgeist movement advocates, then just advocate that. Whatever you agree with that is positive and provably sustainable for humankind, advocate it. Ladies and gentlemen, these modern times that we're living in are slowly becoming worse and worse. There's more cracks that are appearing in the overall picture than ever before in history. I mean, if you want evidence of that, just consider the fact that there are more charities, social movements, NGOs. There are more of the unions. There are more of these than any time in history. These are social immune reactions against the negativities of this system. And these sort of things, right, the very fact that these things exist show that there is actually a problem. Because if the system worked by its own inherent logic, then there would be no need for things like this. I mean, it's like what Jim Phillips referred to in his TZM education presentation, that some school kids ask, and I certainly asked when I was in school, that why do we need to know this? And you normally get told because you have to. But really, the honest answer is, in a streamlined job market, you probably won't. And it's that inefficiency that has to keep being perpetuated if for this current paradigm to keep in play. And we're constantly keeping it in play by our complicit action and just unthinking adherence to what the status quo dictates. And we've always done it without really knowing why we're doing it. I mean, one of the examples I gave to the people I was talking to is, because I don't know whether this is from an actual study, because I saw this from like a Facebook pic, so I don't know whether this is a real world example. But the example of the monkeys in the room where there's a step ladder in the middle with a banana on the top. If you haven't heard of this example before, basically it's like there's a group of monkeys in there, and basically if one of them like sees the banana and starts climbing up the ladder, I think it was the scientists, they just engaged the sprinkler systems in the room, so it drenched all the monkeys, and eventually whenever any monkey would start going up the ladder, the things would come on. So they knew not to go up the ladder, because if you did, you'd get wet. So eventually they started just physically attacking any monkey who tried to go up the ladder to get the thing, because it's like, no, that, they not with language, but they understood with a physical referent to the environment that if someone goes up a ladder, if one of them goes up the ladder, the things come on and they get wet. And what they started doing was they took out one of the monkeys and replaced it with a new monkey. And the monkey's like, oh, there's a banana starts going up them, and then the monkeys like physically attack him, stop him getting up the thing, because they knew that if you go up the ladder, we're all going to get wet. All right. And because they lacked the language skills to communicate that, all the new monkey was subject to was, if I go up the ladder, then they will all attack me. So I better not, because I don't like being attacked. And eventually they just replaced one monkey after the other until every single one of the monkeys was a new monkey that hadn't been in there to begin with, and none of them went up the ladder. And they didn't need to be rained on to realise that going up the ladder is a bad idea. They just said, "Oh, we don't go up there," and they had no idea why. And that's very much like what our current society is like. There's things we don't do that we have no idea why we don't do them. And we know that they are things that we should be doing and that we can do, but we don't do because it's been socially conditioned out of us. We have other people in our environment that if they see us or hear us, or if they witness us doing that thing that isn't good for the system, we can the general public can be relied on to put a stop, or to at least put pressure, some kind of pressure upon that person to not do the thing that society has deemed as bad. And the unfortunate case that in our current society, one of those bad things is thinking, caring, sharing, and being honest, being kind, being respectful to life, and wanting a better life. Those things are bad. Why are they bad? Because the monetary system says so. Because if we did all those things, then the monetary system would not be in place anymore. Yeah? That's why those kind of values have to be downtrodden and conditioned out of people. Another example I gave is where there's a bunch of fleas that are put into a glass case, and there's a glass lid that gets put on the case. It's sort of like a small little fish tank, like tiny little fish tank, and the fleas would try and jump up, and they'd keep hitting the glass lid. So eventually, they didn't jump higher than the height of the tank. Even when the lid was taken off, they would still only jump that high because the environment had conditioned them. The environment had actually physically inhibited them from being able to jump higher, so they learned not to do it. The physically imposed environment created a limited scope of physical activity. So one of the things I said in my talk is that where's your glass ceiling that shouldn't even be there?